Blog Talk Radio.
Namaste, everybody. Welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. It is May 7th, 2014. I'm your host, Andrew Fisher, broadcasting every Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, exposing the true and false nature of reality for what reality is and what reality isn't. I will be writing solo tonight. Did try to get some guests on. I first tried to get Dr. Joel Wallach. Never got a response from the person who was working with him. I tried to get Fritz Springmeier on. He isn't responding to those emails, even though he did say he wanted to come on my show at some point. Don't know what's going on with him there. And, well, I could have called one of the other guests from the future to see if they wanted to come on. But in the end, I'm thinking maybe it may not be such a bad idea for me to ride solo as a lone wolf for a little bit because, well, maybe sometimes that's when I'm at my best by myself to get out information, because that's what I take very seriously on this show, getting out information. And today we will try to be exposing a lot of information on the nature of the universe at this level, the nature of the multiverse, or what people think is the multiverse. And I will also be covering sungazing for a little bit, which I have been doing, and I love it. But first, as usual, let's start with the news, courtesy of Alex Jones and company at InfoWars. FEC Chair. Government seeks to regulate conservative media via election laws. Judge report, InfoWars in the crosshairs. Well, of course, they're going to go after InfoWars. That's a no-brainer because Alex Jones is an expert at exposing government and corporate corruption. Drudge Report, why would they go after Drudge Report? Isn't Drudge Report just an aggregate of news sources? All sorts of news sources get put on the Drudge Report. Why would they go after Drudge Report? Because Drudge Report exposes info that they don't want exposed, including InfoWars news. Alex Jones once said, I think it's best I not talk to Matt Drudge, the head of Drudge Report, because it would be bad luck if we both met with each other. Let's just stay apart, and that'll probably keep the bond close. And Matt Drudge did say that, I think he said 2014 would be the year of Alex Jones. Well, look, you guys can say what you want about Alex Jones, the way he presents info and whether or not he makes you feel uncomfortable. I have always said that listening to him has helped me overcome my fears. That's what listening to fear-mongering can do to you. It can help you overcome your fears. Well, I look at it that way. And if you want to wake a sheeple out of the matrix, I guess you start with Alex Jones, then that will lead them to look at other things, and eventually they'll look into spirituality and metaphysics. And, well, everybody's path is different. But the point here is Alex Jones is basically where the rubber meets the road, the stories he does in regards to waking people up out of the matrix, and the government realizes that. So now the FEC chairman says that they want to regulate the conservative media via election laws. I'd like to see what that's going to be all about. All right, next article. NSA to control the stock market. Spy agency can easily manipulate the market through latest surveillance hub. Well, how can spying on everybody change the way the stock market goes? Well, I can certainly imagine that people will think, oh my God, the NSA is spying on me. I got to better change the way I do my trading. Well, see, that's what the NSA wants to do, people. They want to spy on you to make you change your behavior, to make you feel subdued, to make you feel helpless. That's why, in many ways, the surveillance system is the Illuminati's keystone to the arch. If they lose the surveillance system, they lose everything, and that's why they've gone to such great lengths to, well, they'll hammer any whistleblower who stands in their way and exposes their corruption. But NSA whistleblowers in particular are getting all sorts of flack, like Thomas Drake and Bill Binney and Edward Snowden, of course, who's on the run, living in asylum in Russia. Is asylum the right word there? Or, yeah, I guess it is. And Putin at one point actually once said that he didn't want Edward Snowden to release information that would damage the United States. And it was ironic because Edward Snowden had revealed info that showed how the NSA had been spying on Putin and his cronies in the Russian government. Well, why would Putin, who is not allies with the United States and who has every right and every reason to be angry at the NSA spying on him and his comrades, cronies, in the Russian government, why would he insist that Edward Snowden not expose information that makes the American government look bad? Well, it's because the Illuminati bloodlines control both the American and the Russian government. The idea that they are not allied countries is an illusion in that sense. And since Putin is funded and controlled by the same Illuminati bloodline family members who fund and control the people in America who he opposes, and also all the other national governments on planet Earth, And since the NSA surveillance system is the keystone to the arch that keeps the Illuminati control over Earth together, they would probably slaughter Putin and chop his head off, literally and figuratively, if he let Snowden release information that would make the Russian government look bad. But believe me, Putin is not happy about what Snowden has done. No way. David Icke even once referred to Putin as an archon. Does that mean he's a shape-shifting reptilian alien? Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, moving on. They Live trailer 2014. Recent real-world news meshed with 1980s cult classic John Carpenter's They Live. Well, I don't know what this is really about. Don't have time to look into it. But that movie, They Live, a perfect metaphor for what reality is like. The aliens masquerading as humans, just like the reptilian aliens. And not just the reptilians. I'm sure that there are some other malevolent aliens that might have the ability to masquerade as humans. I mean, it's perfectly straightforward and understandable in mainstream science. Even mainstream science has acknowledged, well, they acknowledge it, but they also downplay it, that reality is holographic. Everything exists because our consciousness tells us it exists. But then at the same time, mainstream science says consciousness is not the same as self-awareness. They once said that on an episode of Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman. And mainstream science is just flat out wrong there. Consciousness and self-awareness are the same thing. Everything exists because our consciousness tells us it exists. So there's nothing unusual about an alien masquerading as a human, even though it's not truly a human, if our consciousness decodes it as a human. We're going to get into some of that later on in this show. But next article, Albuquerque residents vow to storm another city council meeting. Protesters demand arrest of police chief over spate of shootings. Yes, the Albuquerque Police Department, extremely corrupt, would definitely want to keep an eye on that police department. You want to keep an eye on all police departments because the Illuminati wants to turn America and the rest of the world into a totalitarian police state. And China, the communist regime of China, is the model that they look up to. The globalists do, the Illuminati bloodlines. That's why they've allied with China. And when I say allied with China, I don't mean allied with the people of China. I mean allied with the government of China, the communist government. The people of China are so lost in a trance and in the dark. One reason why, more so than other people, they don't have YouTube in China. Why would the government take away YouTube? Because they don't want YouTube being used to expose corruption. Downright disgusting that the same people who try to take away our rights by saying if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear, are the same people who obviously have something to hide that would make them look evil. So, well, that's reptilian archon mentality for you. Totally based on survival, no sense of empathy. All right, next article. Boko Haram terror attack in Nigeria opens door to AFRICOM. Nigeria is the 13th largest oil producer in the world. I think I'm going to want to look into this later on. Catch the Infowars Nightly News when it gets uploaded to prisonplanet.tv to see what this terror attack is all about and how it connects with oil. We don't even need oil. So much technology is out there that can replace oil. In Nigeria, it's a pretty risky thing down there what Nigeria does. Their country basically relies on just one product, and that one product is oil. When crude oil prices dropped significantly in the early 1990s, Nigeria did suffer badly simply because that's the only product they rely on. And let me make it clear, the Illuminati bloodlines want to get oil out of the earth. Oil is to Mother Earth what blood is to humans or any other animal that has some form of blood in it. It's that significant. And saw an episode, I think it was on the UFO TV Studios YouTube channel. It was about ayahuasca. And I'd like to take ayahuasca someday, go down to the South American rainforest and take it there with a shaman. But anyway, the shamans and whatnot there that took ayahuasca say that their lands are being taken over by people who want to drill for oil. And not only do they want to drill for oil, they also want to shut down the ayahuasca places in the rainforest of Brazil and South America because they don't want people taking drugs like that to attain higher states of consciousness to see through the matrix. But getting back to this story here, I don't know what this terror attack is about. I don't know if it was staged or not. Don't know if it was Islamic radicals or whatever, but we'll get into that soon enough. On InfoWars, I'll check to see what that's all about. Next article, Homeland Security faces lawsuit over ignored FOIA request. Border Patrol refuses to release information on unconstitutional checkpoints, roving patrols. Well, I could imagine why Homeland Security would hide stuff from us. They are designed to be the Gestapo police force of America. Let me connect some dots for you. 9/11 was an inside job. Homeland Security was created in response to 9/11. 9/11 was used to justify creating it. Therefore, we can safely assert that Homeland Security is designed to be tyrannical, just like the Gestapo and the Stasi of Germany were designed to be tyrannical. And now it's no wonder they're ignoring FOIA requests. I mean, stories of FOIA requests being ignored and unignored. It's amazing what the government is sometimes willing to put in plain view with FOIA, like Operation Northwood, declassified shortly before 9/11, talked about how in 1962 they were planning to attack American cities with planes crashing into buildings and then blame it on Cuba to justify invading Cuba. And they put that right in plain sight. And yet the people of America and the rest of the world are so lost in a trance that they will say, well, that doesn't mean the government would stage 9/11 if they were willing to do that, or they just flat out act stupid and ignore it. And now I hope the American people get really pissed off about Homeland Security refusing to release FOIA requests. I mean, they're not the first time. I mentioned on the episode I had with Bill Burns about how the FOIA policy of Area 51, if anybody asks to see who the installation commander is, it says on the Area 51 sign, you cannot enter this facility unless you get permission from the installation commander. File a Freedom of Information Act to find out who the installation commander is. It will just come back blank. And I also remember how NIST, when they were asked to through Freedom of Information Act, they were asked to reveal the model of the collapse of Building 7 on 9/11, and they refused to show the model of the collapse, and they said that showing how the building collapsed, their mathematical model, if they showed that, it would jeopardize public safety. Our government thinks we're so stupid that they can use the excuse of public safety and also national security to justify taking our rights. And some people buy it. Knowing how a building collapsed mathematically is not going to jeopardize public safety. I mean, I heard some people say, well, it might help someone else figure out how to enter a building and plant bombs and how to properly destroy the building if they release the mathematics. We don't want that to happen. Well, no, every building is built differently. The mathematics for Building 7 in regards to how it collapsed is nothing compared to the mathematics of how another building would collapse in a controlled demolition. So obviously a controlled demolition, they would definitely have had to sever all the building columns at the same time to let that happen, to let the building fall at free fall speed. I wonder how they did that. Did they use nanothermite? Or did they use some sort of a direct energy weapon that has the ability to sever those columns somehow? Because Alfred Weber has said that a direct energy weapon, mini nukes, and also HARP, he said HARP was used to take down the buildings on 9/11 as well, aside from some direct energy weapon. So that was used to take down Building 7 as well, and they said we will not release the info, the mathematical model of how it collapsed, because it would jeopardize public safety. They think we're that stupid. All right, 2 more articles before I get to sun gazing here. The economic recovery continues. Businesses are being destroyed faster than they are being created. Economic recovery, the phrase there is put in quotation marks. Sub-article, what would you say about an economy where businesses are shutting down faster than they are opening? Well, I would say that's the kind of economy the Illuminati bloodlines want. Do we want the dollar to collapse? Is the collapse of the dollar a good way to undergo a consciousness shift? There is a law being passed on July 1st, 2014, this year, talking about how the foreign countries that use the dollar as their global reserve currency are going to have to do some reporting to the IRS, and Porter Stansberry of Stansberry Research Firm, who has a very accurate track record of predicting future trends in the economy and the stock market, said that will correlate. He elaborates on this in a video he did with the collapse of the dollar. Don't really have time to go into that now, but I'm very interested to see how that pans out on July 1st. Definitely have that date in our mind. And by the way, Andrew Bartzis, the Akashic Records reader, who I make reference to on my show, did say that June 14th. He said that the middle of June to the middle of July every year is when the human body sort of sheds itself, so to speak. It does shed like I don't know how to describe this, an ethereal layer of itself, if that makes sense, to start afresh. And when it happens this time on June 14th, he said it's going to cause people to have a very massive consciousness shift, which is going to make people realize that they're connected at a universal, at a consciousness level with the universe and the multiverse. And we're going to feel more in harmony. I bet that ties in directly what Andromeda Council contactee Tolek said about how we will ascend into higher consciousness in 2014. He did say January 2014, but he was wrong. But that doesn't discredit him because we are not on that timeline, people. His alien contacts can see multiple timelines at once, so don't be shocked that they were wrong when they said January 2014. I did contact Tolek and told him about Andrew Bartz's prediction, and he said, this is very interesting. I'll definitely look into this 4-minute video when I have a chance, and I will. He told me he'd like to get back to me if his contacts tell him anything about what he about what Andrew Bartz has said. That would be interesting to see if there's any correlation. I hope there is. But if Tolek forgets to get back to me, that's fine. I'm just interested in seeing what will happen, and believe me, I'll be doing everything I can to expand consciousness and love, and expand love throughout consciousness to planet Earth and the rest of the universe at large. Meditation is a great way. Raising awareness through telling the truth is another great way. But hey, people, I'm asking you for help. All right, one more article before I get to sun gazing. Sorry I'm spending so much time on the news. It's just I'm doing the show myself today, and just might as well take a little extra time not doing things on the fly just to make sure I can use up the 2 hours that I have scheduled this show for. I'm going to try to make it 2 hours. One final news report here. Report. One Obamacare tax could cost up to 280,000 jobs. Just one of Obamacare's many taxes could cost the U.S. hundreds of thousands of jobs over the next decade. That was the plan of Obamacare all along, and let me make it clear that the federal government does not have authority to pass laws that affect the common people of the several states, and the several states have the ability and the authority to nullify any law the government tries to impose upon the several states. The federal government has only 19 powers for all practical purposes, 19 powers. The only reason government was created to exert by any force necessary to protect the rights and property of every single person who is under the auspices of that government. And the government cannot do anything that an individual does not have authority to do. If you can't do something as an individual, or if you can't order or force someone to do something in your individual capacity, then you cannot get together with a group of people and do the same thing. So getting together in a group, like a government agency or police department, does not grant that authority any better than it did as an individual. The only time coming together in a group is valid and useful is when that collection of force is needed to protect the rights and property of every person who is under the auspices of that government. And the only time rights can be violated is if the totality of the circumstances requires that rights be violated. What does that mean? Well, for one, it means that the government does not have authority to take away people's rights just because somebody might be a safety risk. The words might and totality are like might be and totality are like almost exact opposites, because in a situation where something might happen, the totality is obviously not met. It's a total obvious violation of probable cause. You need probable cause to get a warrant, but many cops don't seem to act like they understand that. In fact, in Pennsylvania, there was this recent law that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania passed saying that police don't need a warrant to search your car. They just need a reasonable probable cause. I believe the exact quote was. That phrase did appear somewhere, reasonable probable cause. That's an exact contradiction because there is no reasonable probable. They are exact opposite. Reasonable suspicion and probable cause, the criteria is different. And the federal government, getting back to what I said about the federal government not having authority to impose law on the people of the several states, they have 19 powers to protect the borders from outside threats, and the 18 enumerated powers in the federal Constitution. Don't have time to get into what those 18 enumerated powers are, but that is why, for all intents and purposes, the federal government only has 19 powers, and none of those powers involves passing laws that affect the people of the several states, and by God, they have violated that to kingdom come. And they think they can do whatever they want until people wake up and realize their government is tyrannical. But we will now continue. I will be talking about sun gazing now. And why do I want to start with sun gazing? Well, I have actually been sun gazing. I've been doing it since the beginning of April. And I'm going to tell you, it really does work. I do have blue eyes, which does make it a little harder to sun gaze because people with blue eyes and lighter colored eyes are more sensitive to sunlight than people with brown or darker colored eyes. And it has to do with the way those colors absorb light. And it is harder to stare at the sun if you're blue-eyed like me. But it really does work. I always feel a sense of well-being, and also it does decrease the appetite because sunlight can't get converted into nutrients. Your eyes do have the ability to do that. And general energy, general sense of well-being, getting high off sunlight, and people have been able to go long periods of time without food. It could be used to solve world hunger. Well, not solve. Everybody's got to eat food at some point, and even HRM could tell you that. Kind of a funny story there. I'll get into that in a moment. But all those starving children in Africa, you ever think maybe you can teach them to stare at the sun? Well, that might help somewhat to keep them from dying of starvation, because they could still get some nutrients through the sunlight. Let me just get a drink of water here, and then I'm going to get into this article on in5d.com, one of my favorite metaphysical sources. Read it. An article on in5d every single day gets uploaded. An in5d article a day keeps the matrix away, I like to say. Okay, nice little drink there, clear my throat a bit. But this article is one of the best sources for this. It's called Sun Gazing, Why I Stare at the Sun. And, of course, there's a disclaimer here. Please note, this sun gazing information is for educational purposes only. We do not recommend sun gazing to anyone. If you are considering sun gazing, please research this as much as possible. Well, this article is a perfect source, so I might as well start talking about it. I mean, they might as well not even say that, because this article basically covers everything you can. So this article will probably give you all the research that you can do as possible before you decide whether or not you want to sun gaze. But here anyway, it says, sun gazing sounds crazy, doesn't it? Doctors warn you about how dangerous the sun is, like my mother, who is an ophthalmologist. She did give me grief about sun gazing, but I was able to convince her that it is not harmful. But I'm sure she's still going to worry about me, because she's brainwashed by the medical system. Because she's an MD, that's what the medical system will brainwash MDs and other people. That's what they want to do. It's only allopathic. But anyway, doctors warn you about how harmful it can be to your health. They recommend we wear sunscreens, shades, and limit our exposure. People complain about skin cancer, sun damage, and sun blindness, and yet all these things have little to do really with the sun. Studies have shown that exposure to sunshine aids the healing of melanoma and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Research indicates it could be an aid in other cancers also. It seems that vitamin D directly from the sun is an excellent healing agent. It is recommended by some who advocate the use of sunshine to limit sun exposure to some degree so that you do not incur skin cancer. I suggest this also for those who eat a normal American diet, or if you include grains in your diet. Your skin is your largest eliminatory organ, whereby unprocessed toxins are released through the skin's pores. Interaction between the toxins and the sun's rays bring about what we know of as skin cancer, and skin cancer rates have gone up. How much of it has to do with sunscreen and how much of it has to do with the ozone layer being depleted? Yeah, folks, the ozone layer is being depleted. That's one of the things that chemtrails are designed to do, is deplete the ozone layer. And they do want to make sure the harmful effects of the sun do harm us. That's why they would damage the ozone layer to allow us to become affected like that. And it says here, skin damage, such as leathering of the skin, is caused by a lack of EFAs in the diet. Sun blindness or damage to the eyes is caused by the use of corrective lenses. Glasses and contact lenses both cause an unnatural glare on the eyes when exposure to the sun. This can cause serious damage to the eyes over time. I wonder how many people with sunglasses and contact lenses are aware of that. All right, but it says here, safe use of the sun. Common sunscreens contain aluminum, a cancer-causing substance. I recommend using plain sesame oil. It is an excellent sunscreen. Research shows it blocks the effects of the sun's rays by about 30%. If you are going to be sunbathing, remove any corrective lenses you are wearing or keep your eyes closed. If you eat an average diet or eat grains, limit sun exposure and wear protective clothing. Next subarticle, staring at the sun. My journey with the ancient practice of sun gazing began in Arizona a little over 3 years ago. I discovered an incredible diet that was to save my life by the same man who was named Khaira Ratan Manek. He was originally from India and is commonly referred to as HRM. HRM has literally subsisted and literally lived off the sun's energy since June 18th, 1995. That is right, he has not eaten solid food in 12 years. Bullshit. He was caught eating in the documentary Eat the Sun. Yeah, the documentary Eat the Sun. Any of you have the documentary channel? I believe it does still air on that show. That was the first time I heard about sun gazing. He was caught eating at the end of that episode. HRM was. Well, it's funny, they didn't actually show him on camera eating in the any live video of him, but they did show pictures of him at the end of that documentary where he was caught with food and in front of him on a table, and one of the servers, the waiters at the restaurant, when the people filming him who caught him eating questioned him, they said, yeah, he basically went on an all-out binge. And when the guy who was looking up to, and I'm not exactly sure if that's the guy who is being referred to in this article, which is being written here in the first person, is the same guy who met Hira Ratan Manek, HRM, in that documentary, but he was looking up to HRM in that documentary, and he talked to him and confronted HRM about how he was caught eating, and HRM was obviously uncomfortable. He said, well, I posed in front of food because someone said they gave me $20 if I posed on camera with food in front of me, and he didn't have the $20 on him, and HRM was like, can I see the photographs of me being caught eating? And well, the guy didn't have the photographs, and you could actually see HRM cross his arms in front of him after the guy left. Anybody who understands body language knows that when someone crosses their arms in front of them when they're talking about something that would make them feel uncomfortable, that is a sign that they are lying and trying to distance themselves from everybody who might know that they're lying. Richard Nixon did that in his I am not a crook speech. He did cross his arms after he said, I am not a crook, just like HRM crossed his arms in that documentary. It's a good documentary, though. It talks about the history of sun gazing, and HRM did come out and say after that, at the end of the very end of the documentary, I have eaten on and off throughout the course of my life since 1995 when my body has tempted me, but I still do believe sun gazing does me well. It really does suppress my appetite, and it really does give me higher energy, so please don't let this keep you from wanting to sun gaze. Well, I haven't let that keep me from wanting to sun gaze, but it just goes to show you that in this matrix, you cannot simply get all your energy from the sun. You do have to eat some solid food. You don't have to eat meat. In fact, humans aren't even supposed to be eating meat because none of our ancestors in the primate family eat meat. But if you like to eat meat, just make sure to ask your guardian angels and spirit guides and source too, to make sure that the food only gives you the highest good from eating it and not let any fear-based energies or entities affect you. I try to do that whenever I eat food, be it meat or otherwise, and try to get into the habit of doing it all the time. But moving on with this article, it says here, in regards to HRM, he has been studied by various researchers such as the Thomas Jefferson University and the University of Pennsylvania. Not only have they found his claims to be true, but medical evidence suggests this man is more healthy than a normal person for his age. This year he is 76. Well, I don't think at the time that they tested him, they did show this in the documentary, he was tested at the hospital and they said his health is great. They said that he is very healthy, but they didn't seem to know that he was that he has eaten and he has not been free of food since June 18th, 1995, as he originally said. But anyway, how does HRM do it? Continuing to talk about HRM, even though I did make it clear he was caught eating, but still, that doesn't mean sun gazing doesn't work. I'm telling you, it does. I have been doing it since April, and it really does work for me. But anyway, how does HRM do it? The ancient practice of sun gazing, doctors found his neurons were active and not dying. His pineal gland is actually growing, not shrinking, which is very unusual in someone over the age of 50. The greatest average in someone over 50 is a pineal size of 6 by 6 millimeters. HRM's is 8 by 11 millimeters. Yeah, whenever I sun gaze, I do feel that my pineal gland is activated. I do see, whenever I close my eyes after I sun gaze for up to like a day after the event, I see a dot of sorts where the pineal gland would be in the third eye area. Whenever I close my eyes, an eye doctor like my mother would assert that that is my eyes being damaged. But no, I think that may very well be my pineal gland being active. I mean, if it was my eyes damaged, why does that dot eventually go away? I'm closing my eyes right now, as a matter of fact, and I don't see it. And it's funny how a couple of times when I've gotten into Aikido practice, I do take Aikido. I am a blue belt, and I'm going to get another test in a few weeks, hopefully. I have noticed that whenever I go to Aikido, like the day after I sun gaze, the pineal gland, that area, that dot in the middle of my eyes, it does seem to all of a sudden become active, even if right before practice, if I were to close my eyes, I wouldn't see any glowing there. Aikido is a very consciousness-oriented martial art. There is no violence in Aikido. but it's like the only martial art in which you don't engage your attacker, and it's pure self-defense. And that's why Ki, what we call Ki, same as Chi, same as the Force from Star Wars, basically, very big in Aikido. And I guess that's why whenever I'm in the dojo environment, in the dojo, that's where you practice Aikido, that's why whenever I'm there practicing with everybody, my pineal gland instantly becomes activated. It's only a theory, but it does kind of make sense. But moving on with this article here, I have spoken with HRM, and he has taught myself and others his sun-gazing techniques. He now runs a website that can be found here. HRM is a little stricter in his training than I myself practice, but his guidelines are probably a must for the average beginner. Here is his process. In August of 2004, I went in to get a new contact lens prescription. I have a genetic retinal degenerative disease. I am blind in one eye. My vision is my good eye. My vision in my good eye sent me home with a prescription of -19. That is a pretty extreme case of nearsightedness. After vigilant sun gazing 1 year, I returned to the same doctor in May 2006. This man was very mainstream, and when I told him I had been sun gazing, he went through the roof, just like my mother did, as I explained earlier. He checked for eye damage. There was none. He checked my prescription. According to his device, my vision had changed to a prescription of -17.5. When I looked at the eye chart, it was even a vastly greater difference. He refused to give me anything lower than -17.5, saying the whole situation was impossible. This had not been the only situation in which a doctor said the same thing to me. It took me months for my eyes to adjust to a prescription that was too powerful. Well, I should point out in that sun-gazing documentary called Eat the Sun on the documentary channel, the guy did, when they did go to the eye doctors, even though his vision did not become hurt at all, he didn't lose any vision, they did say that there was some damage to his eyes that would be consistent with what they would think would happen with sun-gazing. Now, there's a couple theories for that. Maybe the guy was sun-gazing at the improper time, which I seriously doubt, or maybe he worried that the sun would harm him. They say your thoughts manifest in reality because everything exists because our consciousness tells us it exists. So does it really seem crazy to think that if you think a sun gazing will hurt your eyes while you're doing it, it will hurt your eyes? Yeah, it does kind of make sense if you believe that it will hurt your eyes. On the other hand, if you maybe do what I do before I sun gaze and ask your guardian angels, spirit guides, and source, and I would also recommend asking the sun, of course, because the sun has its own consciousness. Everything has its own consciousness. Ask them to guide you on a love-filled and not a fear-filled sun-gazing experience to make the most of it, and directly ask the sun, please do not let my eyes get hurt. Now, if that guy had talked to the sun directly out loud, or maybe even if he talked to the sun in his head, I'm sure the sun can read your thoughts. But anyway, the point is, if he had asked the sun to not let the rays of the sun and all the other damaging effects hurt his eyes, I have a feeling that his eyes would not become hurt as a result of sun gazing. So the key is, if you think it'll hurt you, it'll hurt you. If you think sun gazing will help you, it will help you. But moving on, sun gazers report a variety of benefits. This is the benefits of sun gazing. The most basic are improved health, increased energy levels, clearer thinking, an increase in awareness, and results from what is called wish fulfillment. Wish fulfillment is practiced during the time that you are gazing at the sun. One focus on inner desire needs and having these things come into one's life. It is an amazing practice and partly why I'm so addicted to it. I have had countless things manifest for me after doing various wish fulfillments. It is kind of sad that I only get 3 months of sunshine living in Washington State. Am I recommending sun gazing? Everyone must make their own choices and come to their own conclusions. Do not take my word for it, but take the time to really look into it. If you are interested, you can find additional info from the scientists I previously mentioned. This article, the point is, I think this is one of the best articles out there. You'll probably get all the info you need in this one article, so I don't know if you really need to do any more research other than this one article I'm reading. The URL is in5d.com/sun-gazing.html, in case somebody's wondering. But next article, HRM experimented on his own body for 3 years and devised this method based on trial and error. This can be accomplished by anyone in any part of the world at any time of the year. HRM is not a unique figure, and anyone can do this. Now, thousands are using this method of sun gazing, and they are achieving results in Brazil, Australia, Germany. More than 3,000 people are subsisting on light. This is a rebirth of a science that was practiced a long time ago. Originally, this was a spiritual practice in the ancient times, and now it is becoming a scientific practice, which can be followed by anyone, as described below. Day by day, this practice of sun gazing is becoming popular and has been known as the HRM phenomenon. Safe sun gazing practice. And they put this statement in bold. Sun gazing is a one-time practice in your lifetime, usually for a period of 9 months. You can break up the practice in 3 phases: 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, and 6 to 9 months. You have to walk barefoot for 45 minutes for the rest of your life. Food makes us commit the maximum pain to others and exploit others. The practice entails looking at the rising or setting sun 1 time per day, only during the safe hours. No harm will come to your eyes during the morning and evening safe hours. The safe hours are any time within a 1-hour window and after sunrise, or any time within the 1-hour window before sunset. It is scientifically proven beyond a reasonable doubt that during these times, one is free from UV and IR rays exposure, which is harmful to your eyes. To determine the timings of sunrise and sunset, you can check the local newspaper, which also lists the UV index as 0 during these times. Well, if it's admitted on record, it must be true. Well, say what you want about how accurate newspapers and mainstream media are. I do think that in this case, the fact that the local papers would say that the UV index is 0 during those times is pretty significant. Both times are good for practice. It depends on the individual's convenience. And this is also written in bold here. Sun gazing also has the added advantage of getting vitamin A and D during the 1-hour safe period window. Vitamin A is necessary for the health of the eye, the only vitamin that the eye requires. If you sun gaze, the spectacles and the associated power in the eye will go away, and this will provide better eyesight without glasses. For those who cannot initially sun gaze during the safe period, sunbathing is an effective method for receiving the sun's energy at a slower pace until one is able to sun gaze. Best time to take sun bath is when the UV index is lower 2 or below. This usually occurs within the 2-hour window after sunrise or before sunset. Sunbathing during the day is to be avoided, except for during the winter months when the UV index usually remains at 2 all throughout, which is safe for sunbathing. Well, who's going to want to be outside in the winter months? Check your local newspaper to see the published results for UV index to be sure, and do not use sunscreen. When body gets heated up, your perspiration and sweat is a waste product and needs to go out of the body. When you are painted or coated with lotions and creams, they get degenerated and the chemicals enter your body. It is our malpractice, our wrong use, why we blame the sun for skin cancers. Sun gazing, 0 to 3 months. First day during the safe hours, sun gaze for a maximum of 10 seconds. Second day, sun gaze for 20 seconds as the rising sun, adding 10 seconds every succeeding day. Just want to point out this is how they say is the safe way they claim to sun gaze for the beginner. I am sure that if you stare longer than this, your eyes will not become hurt if you truly believe that the sun will not affect you. And if you ask your guardian angels, spirit guides, and the sun to not let it harm you, I mean, as long as you're doing it in the 45 to an hour window. It's funny if they say 45 minutes to an hour, even though the UV index may be 0 within the hour. I do remember last time I read this article several months ago that they did say 45 minutes and not an hour is how long you should stare at the sun, but I suppose an hour would be okay. They're just trying to make this sound as safe as possible. But moving on, so at the end of 10 continuous days of sun gazing, you will be looking at the sun for 100 seconds, i.e. 1 minute and 40 seconds. Stand on bare earth with bare feet. Eyes can blink and or flicker. Stillness or steadiness of the eyes is not required. Do not wear any lenses or glasses while sun gazing. Why don't you watch the sun instead of the TV? I could certainly understand why someone who wants to wake out of the matrix would choose the sun over the TV, considering the TV is designed to brainwash you. TVs even flicker at a rate that's designed to screw with your brain, and TV, I believe it encourages low alpha waves. So I've heard some sources say that watching TV increases alpha waves, but I think they're confusing it. It actually lowers alpha waves in the brain, which puts you into a state of being brainwashed. On the other hand, you need not restrict any of your normal daily routines to sun gaze. There are no restrictions. You can enjoy your food while applying this practice. Hunger will disappear eventually by itself. You may consider sun gazing from the same place at the same time daily. Following circadian patterns has its advantages. I want to skip over here because I don't really want to spend too much time reading this long article because I do have other things I want to talk about in this show. When you reach 3 months, you will have gazed at the sun 15 minutes at a stretch. If you're going to watch TV for 3 hours, surely you can see the sun for that long. What is happening is you go up to 15 minutes, the sun's energy or the sun rays passing through the human eye are charging the hypothalamus tract, which is the pathway behind the retina leading to the human brain. As the brain receives the power supply through this pathway, it is activated into a brain uter. brain uter. Never heard that word before. One of the software programs inherent in the brain will start running, and we will begin to realize the changes since we will have no mental tension or worries. Besides, we will have the self-confidence to face life problems by means of developing a positive mindset instead of a negative one. Moreover, we will become fearless since our psychosis will have disappeared, so we'll have all the ills of the mind. This is the first phase of the method and lasts around 3 months. Humans have good and bad qualities, which are two sides of the same coin. In the absence of the sunlight, we develop bad qualities. When sunlight enters the brain, good qualities come into appearance, replacing bad ones. And it says that eventually things will go away, and after 3 months of sun gazing, the bad things should go away, and you will develop a sense of confidence to know the answers for yourself spiritually. There is a balance of the mind where you are in a position to judge personal answers, the correct answers. You develop powers that are already inherent to you. Bad qualities disappear. Anger, greed, jealousy love you. You become a lovable creature. Everyone likes you. You do no wrong. This is a great contribution to world peace. And, of course, you reap what you sow. You are infinite consciousness. You get what you give. And if sun gazing can make you give love-filled, beneficial things, then you will receive beneficial things. Mental depression will go away. You will achieve a perfect balance of mind. Fear and death will go away. And now it says sun gazing, 3 to 6 months. Next, physical diseases will start being cured. 70 to 80% of the energy synthesized from food is taken by the brain and is used up in fueling tensions and worries. With a lack of mental tension, brain does not require the same amount of energy as before. As you proceed in sun gazing and your tensions decrease, the need for food intake will go down. When you reach 30 minutes duration of continuous sun gazing, you will slowly be liberated from physical disease, since by then all the colors of the sun will reach the brain throughout the eye. Brain regulates the flow of color prana appropriately to the respective organs. All the internal organs get ample supply of their prior color prana. The vital organs are dependent on certain sun color prana. Kidney red, heart yellow, liver green. Colors reach the organs and address any deficiencies. This is how color therapies work, Reiki and pranic healing. There is a lot of information available on color therapy. This is the process of getting liberated from physical ailments over a 6-month period. After 3 to 4 months, you can become cured of your physical ailments with autosuggestion, which is imagining and visualizing healing your ailments while sun gazing. Scientific methods such as solariums, crystals, color bottles, natural stones, gems all utilize sun energy, which is stored in these natural stones. You can keep natural color stones in drinking water to further hasten healing. Where can I skip over here? Photosynthesis. We usually think about that in terms of plants, but photosynthesis says here, which we misunderstand, does not in fact need chlorophyll. Only the plant kingdom needs chlorophyll. Human body can do it with a different medium. Photosynthesis is transforming the sun's energy into a usable energy format, not just for plant purposes. This is how photovoltaic cells work and electricity is produced. Similarly, water is heated, food is cooked in solar cooker, and solar batteries run automobiles. Eyes receive the entire spectrum of the sunlight while sun gazing, which is distributed to the different parts of the body by the brain on a need-per basis. As a result, you are cured from all diseases. A third intermediate medium is avoided. As you continue sun gazing, energy is no longer being used up for mental impairments or physical ailments. Thus, its storage level increases in your body. You are your own master within 6 months. Next, it says sun gazing after 6 to 9 months. After 6 months of sun gazing, you will start to have the original form of microfood, which is our sun. Additionally, this can avoid the toxic waste that you take into your body while you eat regular food. 7 to 5 months and 35 minutes of sun gazing is when hunger starts going down palpably. Need for food intake decreases. No one needs to eat more than his or her hunger levels. Hunger comes because of energy requirements of the body, which is a must for its existence. And let me make it clear that hunger is not necessarily caused by a lack of energy. It's also caused by a lack of proper nutrients. Your body needs 90 essential nutrients, and if any of those nutrients is deficient at some point, your body will malfunction in some way. That's why I take Tangy Tangerine from Longevity. It does have a little bit of those 90 essential nutrients in it at some point. And many hunger problems where people get hungry is when they're lacking some nutrients, their body just wants to keep eating. But as long as you don't get the proper nutrients, it doesn't matter how much you eat, your body will continue to feel hungry. And apparently sun gazing does seem to solve that problem. And it also says here, Conventionally, you are indirectly getting the sun energy while eating food, which is a byproduct of sun energy. If there is no sunlight, no food will grow. Well, that's just goes to show you everything is connected in life. Therefore, as you consume the original form of food by sun gazing, hunger goes down, starting to disappear eventually. By 8 months, you should see hunger almost gone. For a dull or weak student or with no belief, this time period may be 9 months or 44 minutes. Aha! They're saying here for a dull or weak student or with no belief. Well, that goes back to what I said about how if you believe sun gazing will hurt your eyes, then it will hurt your eyes. I say it once, I'll say it again. Ask your guardian angels, your spirit guides, and the sun directly, and source too, to guide you and protect you as you sun gaze. Do not let it harm you, and I'm sure your eyes will be fine. I mean, they can't, I don't know if they can protect you 100%, the guardian angels and spirit guides do. There are limits to the extent that they can come into this reality, because when they try to come into this reality, it does lower their consciousness to this level, and they do not want to do that. I can't blame them. Who would if you're in higher consciousness? But they do have an obligation to help us in dire situations, and also if we ask for help for good reasons. And sun gazing is a good reason to, and a good excuse to ask your guardian angels, spirit guides for assistance. But moving on here, all mechanisms associated with hunger, like aroma, cravings, and hunger pangs, also disappear. Moreover, energy levels are at a higher level. There is a judgment, having had this experience, that the brain is well activated with sun energy. Well done. You have become a solar cooker. And now sun gazing after 9 months. After 9 months, or when you reach a 44-minute level, you should give up sun gazing, since solar science prohibits further gazing for the sake of eye care. Since solar science prohibits further gazing for the sake of eye care, the body will get discharged when you stop practicing, which has to be recharged. Now you have to start walking on bare feet on bare earth for 45 minutes daily for a total of 6 days. Relaxed walking only. No need to walk briskly, jog, or run. Any convenient time of the day is all right. However, it is preferred to do that when earth is warmer and sunlight is falling on your body. When you walk barefoot, an important gland in the brain center called the pineal gland of the third eye is activated. The big toe of the foot represents this gland. 25 years ago, it was considered a useless gland. Now it has become an important gland for study, and up to now, about 18,000 papers have been published about the third eye pineal gland. Just as a side note, some people say you should use the pineal gland, and hey, there's a lot of beneficial things that can come with it. But some other people, like George Kavasalis, who I reference on my show because I do admire his attitude and his heart-sensed base of looking at things in life, that the heart is the way to go. There's really no sense in going with your pineal gland. He says, said this on my show, just go with the heart. You can't go wrong. Well, you can make the argument maybe he is missing out on something when he doesn't use his pineal gland, but hey, everybody's got their own way to go through life. It has always been known as the seat of the soul. The pineal gland is. The pineal gland has optic nerve endings. The remaining 4 toes represent glands 2, pituitary, hypothalamus, thalamus, and amygdala. Amygdala for the last 2 years has been gaining importance in medical research. It's a nucleus of the sun or cosmic energy and plays an important role in the photosynthesis via sunlight reaching the brain through the eye. The earth heat energy and the sun prana falling on the head of the crown chakra. Crown chakra, Andrew Bartzis often makes reference to the crown chakra because that's the chakra that I believe he said is where the Akashic records come into. So I guess that's another area where maybe you can make the argument that George Kavasalis is missing out on something when he says go with the just the heart. Well, I'm sure maybe he also uses other things beside the heart, but he says the heart's the way to go. Well, some can beg to differ. If you're not using your crown chakra, maybe you are missing something. But moving on here, after 1 year of recharging, if you are satisfied with your progress, you can give up. Barefoot walking, few minutes of sun energy falling on you once in 3 to 4 days will be enough from then on. But if you want the immune system to strengthen, then keep barefoot walking. Also, if you want memory power or intelligence to increase, continue the walking practice. As you increase the sun's heat on your feet, the brain will activate more and more, which will result in the more activity of the pineal gland. And now they're going to get into what the pineal gland is about. The pineal gland has certain psychic and navigational functions. Now, why doesn't anybody want to use that? Well, everybody's got their own way of going through life, they say, but why wouldn't you want to use psychic and navigational functions for benevolent purposes? I think I certainly would. Navigation means one can fly like the birds. You can develop psychic skills of telepathy that have your body at different places simultaneously. Science has validated human psychic function and medical experience are being done to ascertain this. Different body parts and its organs gets purified once you stop eating due to detoxification. The different internal organs play different mechanical parts for the purposes of space travel and flight. There's another utility value, excuse me, other than food digestion for the internal organs. All the glands have a lot of function and can perform at optimal level via sun energy. If you are fortunate to activate the brain optimally, you surely will reach enlightenment. You can read past, present, and future. This method can be safely applied to control obesity. Almost all problems can be solved. I want to get some of the important stuff about when you should sun gaze. It says here you should sun gaze only when the sun is fairly low in the sky. Never attempt to sun gaze when the sun is at or near its zenith, at noon, or during an eclipse of the sun. You can sun gaze by looking directly at the sun at sunrise and sunset without any discomfort. Begin by practicing these sun gazing techniques slowly for a short time at the beginning to see how your eyes are affected. Follow your inspiration. See detailed examples of sun gazing methods below. Let me see some other parts here which I want to read, but I think I may actually stop talking about this because I just realized I've been talking about this for quite a while, and I think it might, well, actually the rest of this article, if anybody wants to look at this, it's basically how people say they have done sun gazing, but there is some history here, and I think I might want to cover this quickly before I get on to what the nature of reality is like from the universe and a multiverse perspective, which I'll do for the remaining hour of the show. The sun is the biggest planet in our planetary system. Oh, they call it a planet. Its circumference is 109 times bigger than that of the Earth, and it can, I think they got it wrong. I think they meant to say the diameter is 109 times. Yeah, that's a typo there. It should say the diameter is 109 times bigger than that of the Earth, and it can accommodate 1.3 million Earths in it. And, well, actually, I don't really want to get into this stuff about the sun here, but it's funny how I mentioned on the show yesterday that a lot of what we thought was sun symbolism is actually Saturn symbolism. David Icke and David Talbot say that Saturn was a lot closer to Earth, and there was a luminous crescent around Saturn that's depicted in a lot of things from antiquity. This is actually before Saturn had its synthetic rings, emphasis on synthetic. It's an Archon Matrix creator, wink, wink. But anyway, in ancient Egypt, the sun was worshipped as Ra. Okay, this is all David Icke would have a field day with this because he writes all in his book about how this is all Saturn symbolism and not sun symbolism. So, but I'm sure there was definitely some sun symbolism in antiquity, but we have to understand that a lot of it is Saturn. But it says here that in ancient Greece and Rome, Apollo came to be associated with the sun. In Mesopotamia, it was Shamash. The Indian tribes of America have many interesting tales associated with our sun. And science has proved the need for sunlight for growth, agriculture, health, and numerous other aspects of human life. And according to Indian mythology, I don't know if this is Indian mythology or as in Native Americans or Hindu, but it says Surya, which was what they called the sun, was responsible for health and life, a reflection of what was perhaps the scientific belief of the time. Surya is one of the principal Vedic deities up, so it's a Hindu Indian mythology there. He's pictured as riding across the sky in a chariot pulled by 7 horses. Reminds you of Apollo. Well, a lot of religions are kind of strange throughout the world in that they're very similar. Is that the Illuminati modeling one religion after the other to brainwash us? I think maybe it is. But it finishes off the article here. Additionally, the rays of the sun with 7 colors have a cure for all kinds of diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, obesity, arthritis, osteoporosis, cancer, and others. If world peace is to be achieved, everyone should have a perfect balance of mind. Thus, this method can also contribute to the world peace. Well, I don't know how much more research you can get with sun gazing. I obviously didn't read everything there, but that article, one more research you have to do, and that article will basically say everything. But moving on, I want to talk about the true nature of reality at a universal level. If you folks will give me just a minute here, I actually need to turn the lights on in my room because there's a lot of cloud cover in the sky right now, and I really don't know if I'll be able to see my book in a few minutes. Just hang on a second while I turn the lights on here. All right, now I can definitely read this book. This is Chapter 22 of David Icke's book, The Perception Deception, called Archon Science. There's a quote here to start from Leonardo da Vinci, who was privy to a lot of knowledge because he was a member of a secret society that had connections to the Illuminati. Not that da Vinci was evil or anything, but being part of that secret society gave him all sorts of knowledge to know what reality was actually like. And the quote here is, "If you find from your own experience that something is a fact and it contradicts what some authority has written down, then you must abandon the authority and base your reasoning on your own findings." Well said, Da Vinci. First paragraph here says what we call science is the prime source from which the global population overwhelmingly gleans its sense of reality, what is possible and impossible, and the nature of life and who we are. Science is defined as the systematic study of the nature and behavior of the material and physical universe based on observation, experiment, and measurement, and the formulation of laws to describe these facts in general terms. Another definition is any body of knowledge organized in a systematic manner. The term systematic is defined as comprising or resembling a system. The definition of a system is a group of interacting, interrelated, or interdependent elements forming a complex whole, and a group or combination of interrelated, interdependent, or interacting elements forming a collective entity. I quote the dictionary here to be systematic in my study of what science really is, little more than a guard at the gate to true reality, and purposely so. The matrix is a system, Neo, and science operates as a system in service to the bigger system of human control. That was the quote from The Matrix, of course, from the movie. To be a mainstream scientist with funding from the system, you have to be very proficient at absorbing information downloaded from the education curriculum and repeating it accurately on an exam paper. This allows you, if circumstances go your way, to decide on the scientific specialization you then wish to pursue. And he lists a lot of scientific specialties here, and then he says, I'm sure that there will be many more too. But the point is, everybody follows the same stuff in the same field of science, and if you deviate from the scientific norm, then you will lose your job. And one of those things that everybody seems to accept as fact is the Big Bang. David Icke writes that he told in the story in his book, Remember Who You Are, which was the book he wrote before this book, The Perception Deception, of how the Big Bang Theory is a perfect case of an original assumption becoming scientific fact merely through repetition and the teachings of each generation of children and students, that this is how everything began. And he has a picture here with what looks like a star exploding, and he writes here, Big Bang Bullocks. Bullocks is a British term that loosely translated into English means bullshit. But moving on here, this theory claims that about 13.7 billion years ago, the universe was compressed into the nucleus of an atom, and they called this the singularity. Before this, they say there was no time or space, and then came an explosion. Well, I think a word expansion is better than explosion, generating temperatures of trillions of degrees. And quantum physicist Michio Kaku has said that the Big Bang is a total misnomer. Big, because it was a singularity, and there was no bang, because there was no air to carry the vibration, so there couldn't have been any sound. But the name stuck anyway. And says here, before this, they say there was no time or space, and then came an explosion generating temperatures of trillions of degrees. Is it warm in here, or is it me? This Big Bang created some atomic particles, energy, matter, space, and time. No, the Matrix did that in terms of our currently experienced reality. Then, the official story goes, along came planets and stars and everything in all existence that we see thanks to something the size of the nucleus of an atom going pop. Amazing, eh? American researcher and writer Terence McKenna captured the nonsense of all this when he said of the Big Bang Theory, give us a free miracle and we'll explain the rest. Let me get a drink of water here, and then I'm going to read this Terence McKenna quote because it's pretty cool. Terence McKenna, he was a drug user, and he was a genius. He knew what he was talking about, and he knew how to use drugs in a way to expand your consciousness and wake up out of the matrix. Hallucinogenic drugs, mind you, not hard drugs like cocaine and heroin, which can become problematic if they become addictive. But anyway, Terence McKenna quote here, quote, every model of the universe has a hard swallow. What I mean by a hard swallow is a place where the argument cannot hide the fact that there's something slightly fishy about it. The hard swallow built into science is this business about the Big Bang. Now let's give this a little attention here. This is the notion that the universe, for no reason, sprang from nothing in a single instant. Well, now before we dissect this, know that this is the limit test for credulity. Whether you believe this or not, knows that it is not possible to conceive of something more unlikely or less likely to be believed. I mean, I defy anyone, it's just the limit case for unlikelihood, that the universe would spring from nothing in a single instant for no reason. I mean, if you believe that, my family has a bridge across the Hudson River that will give you a lease option for $5. It makes no sense. It is in fact no different than saying, and God said, let there be light. And what these philosophers of science are saying is, give us one free miracle, and we will roll from that point forward, from the birth of time to the crack of doom. Just one free miracle, and then it will all unravel according to natural law. And these bizarre equations, which nobody can understand, but which are so holy in this enterprise. Well, I say then, if science gets one free miracle, then everybody gets one free miracle. And I perceive that it is true when you build these large-scale cosmogenic theories that you have to be a kind of an umbilical cord, or a point to start from that is different from all other points in the system. So if we have to have a singularity in our modeling of what reality is, let's make it as modest and as most unlikely a singularity as possible. The singularity that arises for no reason, in absolutely empty space, instantly, is the least likely of all singularities. Well, that was the Terence McKenna quote. David Icke then writes, the Big Bang Theory was in tatters in early 2013 when an international team of astronomers working with the University of Central Lancashire in England discovered the biggest known structure in the universe. This was a group of quasars, the brightest known objects in the universe, which is so big it would take 4 billion years to cross even traveling at the speed of light. That's the official perspective anyway. Quasars are also known as quasi-stellar objects and give off immense amount of energy in the form of radio waves and other sources. The relevance of this colossal quasar cluster, about a fifth of the observable universe, is that something this large could not have formed within the Big Bang Theory. Dr. Roger Close, lead author of the Astronomers' Team Report, said the discovery upsets the foundation of everything we do. Yes, and we're programmed by the education system and the scientific norms to believe was real. With the greatest of ironies, the Big Bang was first suggested in 1927 as the hypothesis of the primeval atom by Georges Lemontier, I believe that's how it's pronounced, a priest at the Catholic University of Louvain in Belgium. He was partly, I'm not really going to get into this stuff about his history. But it says here one of the main confirmations that the universe is still expanding as a result of the mythical Big Bang is the phenomenon known as redshift. The belief that celestial bodies appear to be red in the light spectrum when they are moving away because of the effect of frequency waves. The Big Bang date of 13.7 billion years ago derives from redshift calculations, and yet Edwin Hubble, the man credited with discovering redshift, said, it seems, quote, it seems likely that redshift may not be due to an expanding universe, and much of the speculation on the structure of the universe may require re-examination, unquote. The redshift assumption is now in as much trouble as its associated Big Bang. So we have the very foundations of the mainstream science version of the universe, the one taught in schools and universities and constantly repeated as fact by the media, based on two assumptions that are patently flawed and blatantly nonsense. And these are the same people with the breathtakingly bare-ass cheek to call alternatives to this view pseudoscience, which is the mantra of the Skeptic Society. This is the same stream of unscientific claptrap. We are asked to believe at one point that the world was flat and the Milky Way was the universe and nothing else existed before Hubble proved them wrong in the 1920s. And it talks about here how basically everybody knows that. That must be the way it is. Well, apparently not. It's just the bloodlines have gone to such great lengths to make us believe that this is how reality works. And one thing I want to talk about here, I read an article. This is where I want to talk about the gravitrino and dark matter. I read an article headed, this is David Icke saying this, I read an article headed, Gravitinos, Will They Unlock the Mystery of Dark Matter in the Universe? It described the work of R.A. Reklev, an associate professor of particle physics at the University of Oslo's Department of Physics, and his efforts to identify and explain dark matter, which mainstream science believes makes up most of the universe, even though it is invisible, which is why they call it dark. What you hear constantly from scientists and journalists is the line, what we know is. The journalists and television news presenters will say what we know is about a story when they didn't know at all. They're just being reading what's on a screen in front of them in many cases. What they say they know is normally only what the authorities have told them and nothing more. It is another assumption that they know, and this infests the media as much, if not more, as it does mainstream science. R.A. Reklev said in the article that we can calculate how much dark matter there is in the universe. No, mate, you think you can. You assume you can. He goes on to say, quote, "We still know little about what dark matter is," unquote. Oh, but they have already assumed that they can calculate how much of it there is. What if dark matter doesn't exist at all? What if what you think is dark matter are really waveform and electromagnetic forces in the unseen impacting upon the seen? I am just going to quote from the article, widely available on the internet, to confirm my point about complicating the simple and clambering through the anal cavity. In order to dig deeper into why Reckless believes dark matter consists of gravitinos, and, I actually don't want to talk about this any further, because one thing I do want to talk about before I get into the really, really serious stuff about what the nature of reality is like from a multiversal level. I talked about before on the on this show that stars are not powered by nuclear fusion. Well, that's what many metaphysics and consciousness experts say. But I do want to talk about that in this in this show here, because I think it's pretty significant that they are trying to keep us knowing how stars are really powered, because if you knew the truth behind stars are powered, and that could greatly expand our consciousness. Okay, I found the part in the book here. Sorry, it took me a few minutes to find it. But let's get into this here. The light bulb sun. The sun has its own version known as... All right, hold on. Bear with me here, folks. I want to make sure this is the right part. I thought I found the right part, but he does straight up say in this book, I do remember reading the section, that he says the whole thing about stars is so obviously flawed. Maybe it's on page 93 here. Just give me a second here, folks. I'm sorry I didn't look at this sooner. But this is very important that I cover this, because this does tie in very much directly to what the nature of reality is like. I believe it is early in the book, but just to make sure. All right, here it is. It is the right page. It says the sun has its own version known as the heliosphere, and this must be the case with the sun consisting almost entirely 99% of plasma. It is a plasma ball processing electricity. Mainstream science has got the sun so wrong it's hard to know where to start. The sun is not a gigantic nuclear reactor generating heat and light from its core, and so it is not burning itself out and heading for ultimate destruction. Ralph Jurgens, an American engineer and electric universe researcher, said, "The modern astrophysical concept that ascribes the sun's energy to thermonuclear reactions deep in the solar interior is contradicted by nearly every observable aspect of the sun. But the observably obvious has never stopped mainstream science propagating the absurdity nonsensical in the past, and nor does it now. The energetic power of the sun does not come from within itself. The power is generated at the electrical level of the universe, and the sun is an electrical processor and transformer which draws its power from the universal electric field and turns it into light. The same principle as a light bulb, really. The electrical field goes through cycles when there is more electrical power available than at other times, and this is reflected in the so-called sun cycle when solar activity increases and diminishes. Think of how a dimmer switch works. The X-ray level of the sun dims in the same way in response to reduced electrical power. One of the major measurements of solar activity is sunspots, the massive holes punched in the sun's surface by electrical activity. It says here on the picture, sunspots are punched from the outside of the sun, not from within. Mainstream science that this happens because of increased energy generated from inside the sun, but as I just said, this is the opposite. Sunspots are punched from the outside. The hole punching power is coming the other way. There is a plasma donut, known as a torus, which can be seen in the ultraviolet level circling the solar equator, and this torus absorbs and stores electricity from the universal grid, and there's a picture here that he has the torus seen at the ultraviolet level of the sun, showing that it is in fact there. When there is a high-power cycle of electrical activity, the torus becomes overloaded and has to discharge electricity in the same way that the Earth's atmosphere does with lightning. These discharges smack into the solar surface, punching the holes that we call sunspots, and so the number of sunspots is roughly used to measure the level of solar activity. But sunspots are created from without, not from within. More confirmation of the wrong way around perception of the sun by mainstream science comes from the fact that the surface of the sun is relatively cool compared with the incredible temperatures in the upper atmosphere. The sun's corona, which is way out from the surface, is the hottest part of the sun, some 200 million degrees Kelvin, compared with 50,000 degrees at the surface. And I guess David Icke is trying to say here that the core of the sun is not as hot as mainstream science leads us to believe, like being 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. No. It's not like that at all. And interesting fact, the word corona, everybody thought it came from the word crown. No. It comes from Kronos, the god Saturn. Well, that's what David Icke is starting to insist in this book. Who knows? They both seem accurate, but anyway, the sun's corona, which is way out from the surface, is the hottest part of the sun, some 200 million degrees Kelvin compared with 5,000 degrees of the surface. Talk about as clear as the nose on your face. He's trying to make it obvious that the nuclear fusion theory is wrong. When scientists embark on an MRI scan of the sun's inner workings, they found the very opposite to what should have been there if their theories about the sun's heating system were accurate. The official story goes that the sun's power comes from a thermonuclear reaction at the center, which is brought to the surface by a radiative zone and then a convective zone. But they have produced no evidence for the existence of a radiative zone, and the MRI scan revealed almost no convective zone, only 1% of that necessary for their theory to be true. As David Talbot and Wallace Thornhill write in Thunderbolts of the Gods, from the smallest particle to the largest galactic formation, a web of electrical circuitry connects and unifies all of nature, organizing galaxies, energizing stars, giving birth to planets, and, on our own world, controlling weather and animating biological organisms. There are no isolated islands in an electric universe. Well, folks, I hope you got something from that. I've covered that on the show before, but it bears repeating that the whole thing about the what makes the stars tick is not what we are led to believe. And I want to relay back to that interview I did with Stan Friedman. He talked about how stars are powered by nuclear fusion. He claims, well, he's a nuclear physicist. He subscribes to that. I mean, you can't blame him for being wrong on that, because he and all the other people in his field have been bombarded with people who want the world to know that stars are powered by, who want people to think that stars are powered by nuclear fusion when they aren't, and they really want people to think that because, as I said, if we knew that stars are actually connected by a universal electromagnetic web of consciousness, then that could help us realize that everything is connected, which would in turn expand our consciousness at a universal and also a multiversal level. And speaking of a multiversal level, I will now try to dedicate the rest of this show to getting out of what the nature of science is like in this universe, and be talking about what the nature of science is like at a multiversal level, after I get a drink of water, that is. All right. By the way, I do apologize again for that little delay in trying to get that stuff about the stars being powered from the outside and not the inside. Wasn't actually planning to do that on my show. It just came to me. That's why I had a little problem there, a little delay fuddling through the book. But anyway, this stuff that I'm going to talk about in regards to what the higher planes of existence are in this reality, and I say the higher planes because I'm getting this information from the website silverlegion.org. The Silver Legion, they must exist because Andrew Barsis, the Akashic Records reader, asserted that they exist. They are a group of light workers and light warriors, higher dimensional entities of love and light that go to other universes and worlds to, among other things, save people and spread love throughout consciousness. They are made up of all kinds of creatures. There's animals that are in there. There's even dragons, I hear. David Icke says a lot of dragon legends are direct references to reptilians. Well, maybe he's mistaken about that. Maybe the dragons are actually the dragons in the Silver Legion. Who knows? I don't know. But I want to get on this article. I think you'll find this quite interesting. And again, just like with the rest of this show, use your own discernment. Use your own discernment with sun gazing. I mean, I just read that whole article because it covers everything. I mean, I try to cover most of it on this show, but if you want to do sun gazing, I think you'll be fine. But again, do your research, and also this stuff that I talked about with the nature of this universe, with the Big Bang and redshift being horsepucky and the stars being powered by nuclear fusion theory being horsepucky. I mean, research that too. I encourage you to research it. And I also encourage you to research the theory that I've talked about before, but won't really be getting into on this show, that every planet has its own consciousness filtering system, which allows for life to exist on the surface of the planet on this level. You don't have to go to another dimension. You can just fly there on this level. You'll find life there. It doesn't matter how far the star is from the sun. It doesn't matter how far the planet is from the star. It doesn't matter how big the planet is. Any planet can have life because it has its own consciousness filtering system. John Lear said that in his Project Camelot interview back in 2008, and Among other things, that would explain how the Anunnaki can survive on the planet Nibiru, and I'm not really going to get into how we know Zecharia Sitchin was right and not how he was mistaken, as some people say. I've talked about it on other shows, but people try to discredit Sitchin by saying the Anunnaki can't survive on Nibiru because it's too far from the sun. Well, no, every planet has its own consciousness filtering system. I mean, I don't have time to get into that. I just want to quickly get that out because that's another important thing about discovering the true nature of reality in this universe. But now, without further ado, I wanted to get into this stuff about the Silver Legion. This is Tanath, the Silver Legion contactee, human representative on planet Earth. This is her website, silverlegion.org. This is how she describes the higher planes. She writes here, our understanding of the higher planes. Many who reach this site will come with previous understandings about what is commonly called the astral plane, one of the higher planes, and may also have understanding of the other higher planes. Please understand that what is written here is not necessarily counter to your experiences. There are many levels of the planes and many, many different ways to experience them. When it comes to your experiences and the experiences of other people, it is not up to any one person to say, no, you are wrong, you cannot have experienced what you experienced. Trust in yourself, you are real. We of the Silver Legion experience the higher planes not as one single plane of existence, but as a series of layers. Some of these layers will already be familiar to some of the people reading this. Others may be less so. This page will describe these layers and how we experience them. This is important because when we talk about being located in the higher planes, we are talking about being located on specific layers of this continuum. If you wish to find us, you will need to know where to look. The first layer, this is the first layer, the ethereal plane. This layer is closest to the physical Earth. It is essentially a fluid, shadow duplicate of the physical Earth. In it, you will see things similar to how they appear in the physical world, only they will be somewhat transparent and insubstantial. Anything that doesn't have a long presence will come and go in flashes. For instance, small items that we move often might appear and disappear. Furniture might move around on its own, and places where new buildings have been erected might flash between as they were and as they are. This layer of the astral plane is where most ghosts linger. Often they are no more than echoes of strong sentiment and not actual consciousness entities at all. Oh, let me read that again. That's interesting. Ghosts are no more than echoes of strong sentiment and not actual conscious entities at all. Well, I don't know if that's always the case, but that's what she says. It's kind of interesting. It's worth pointing out. And it's also worth pointing out that they say that people become ghosts when they commit suicide, among other things. And there's also a lot of sources that have said ghosts have unfinished business of some sort, and that's why they are ghosts. I remember that from the 1996 movie Casper with Christina Ricci. That was what the therapist in that movie said. Ghosts have unfinished business. Who knows what that means. But moving on here, there are layers below the ethereal plane, but they are harder to access for conscious beings, which is why it's being referred to as the first here. Remote viewing can be used to utilize the ethereal plane. The second layer, the dreamlands. Second layer is called the dreamlands. Most of us know what the dreamlands are like, whether or not that's what we call them. The dreamlands are where we all go when we sleep and dream. Here, everything is highly fluid and malleable. Things change from one instance to the next, often unpredictably and randomly. There are exceptions, as anyone with recurring dreams or shared dreams will be quick to tell you. Sometimes there are things that persist in the dreamlands. Generally, this plane is quite safe for humans. Most people will never be harmed in the dreamlands unless they manage to convince their own psyche that they have truly been harmed. Doesn't that go back to what I said about how if you believe sungazing will hurt your eyes, it will hurt your eyes, but if you believe that sungazing will help you and ask the sun and your guardian angels and spirit guides and source to keep you protected, then you'll be protected? Yes, I do believe it ties in directly to that. I've said it like maybe half a dozen times on this show, but it does bear repeating because that's the way reality works, because you are infinite consciousness. Everything exists because your consciousness tells you it exists. All right, but moving on. The third layer, the astral plane. This is what most of us think of when we think about the astral plane. Much like the dreamlands, this layer is infinitely malleable, though here you will begin to encounter entities that have their own existence completely separate from any part of the physical realm. As with the ethereal and dreamlands, things come and go here. Constructs and places are likely to dissolve away if energy and concentration is not invested into them to keep them around. The Silver Legion keeps an outpost on this level, with some people there all the time to maintain the outpost as a thought form. Unlike the dreamlands, this level of the planes can be dangerous to those who have not studied how to protect themselves. However, this plane, as far as the planes go, is fairly accessible to most humans who take the time and have the discipline to learn how to reach it. The next layer, called the barrier between astral and above. There is a barrier between the third level of the planes and those higher. While we do not know exactly who or what created it, from our experiences, not everyone seems equally capable of crossing the barrier. We do not know why this is or how to tell who will be and who won't be. Some of us have theorized that this is the line where 3D ends and 4D begins. The fourth, actually, you know what? Before I move on to the 4th and 6th layers, the word, I'm reading that 3D and 4D, I'm thinking, what is the difference between the terms dimension and density? I want to go into that for a moment, let you guys decide your own discernment. When I was at the In 5D City of Angels Cosmic Awakening Conference, I got the chance to speak to Daryl Anchor while he was under the influence, so to speak, of his ET contactee Bashar. And Bashar, the alien who we were contacting, was I asked him the question, now that Mother Earth as a planet has ascended into 4D, into the 4th dimension, how long will it take for humans to ascend into 4D, in which we can have more crystalline bodies and survive without food and water and sleep less and do all the lovely things that come with being a 4D human? And he explained to me, you already in the 4th dimension because you're in 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. I presume you actually mean density. And then he said you could think of densities as states within a country, and you can think of a dimension as that country. Well, that's the description he gave. Now, Joe Mara, the Reiki healer, when I had him on my show, he said that he uses the terms dimension and density interchangeably. And when I tried to contact Andromeda Council contactee Tolek to bring to his attention what the stuff that Bashar has said, he made it clear to me he doesn't differentiate between the terms dimension and density, and apparently so don't a lot of other people don't differentiate with it either. I should point out, though, that Bashar said that throughout the course of 1,000 years, we will remain in physicality, but we will move in and out of different densities in that 1,000 years that we remain in physicality. And in a Project Camelot interview, I don't remember the woman's name, but she had she's a contactee with Cassiopean extraterrestrials. She gave a description of the difference between dimensions and densities. She said that there are 7 densities, and I have heard other sources, among them David Wilcox, say that there are 7 densities. And but dimensions, you can think of dimensions as being horizontal, she said, and there are infinite dimensions, but densities, there's only 7 of them, and they go vertically. That's the way she described it. Vertical densities, horizontal dimensions. The former has only 7, and the latter, the dimensions, has infinite. And she talked about how if an entity is of a higher density than the respective numbered dimension, like a 5th dimensional entity will have control over all the, a 5th density entity will have control over all the dimensional entities below it. This is the best way I can describe it. She described it to the best of my knowledge about what I remember from what she said. I mean, I understand that there are all sorts of differences here, but the fact that some people say that there is a difference between dimension and density, and the fact that other people say there is no difference, makes it kind of confusing and pretty easy to understand why this is so complicated. Although I will also point out my interview with Alfred Weber, he said that dimension, what dimension you are in, directly correlates not just with location, but also the extent to which you are a service to self or a service to others entity. If you are a service to self, you will be a lower dimensional entity, but when you are a service to others, you will be a higher dimensional entity. And it's, I guess the location factor ties into what Bashar said about 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get a definitive answer to what this question is, although it's funny how Andrew Bartis recently said in one of his question and answer sessions that he was asked what are Bigfoot and Sasquatch. He said that they are higher density. He didn't use the word dimension, and he's made it clear that he says there is also a difference between density and dimension. And but I guess even though he's an Akashic Records reader, this whole difference between dimension and density, I guess it is in some sense a point of view issue, because As Obi-Wan Kenobi told Luke Skywalker, many of the truths we cling to depend very heavily on our point of view, and even an Akashic Records reader like Andrew Bartzis cannot escape that fact. He has, on a couple of occasions, struggled in discussing the difference between like dimension and frequency. Yeah, in the same question and answer session, he actually did discuss the difference between dimension and frequency, and I don't think he said that frequency and density are the same thing, but maybe sometimes somebody will ask him what is the difference between dimension and density. Maybe I'll ask him that. Don't know if he'll answer it, though. He gets a lot of questions, and if he doesn't answer mine, you can't blame him, because people will always ask him a lot of things, and he does have to be selective. And he has every right to ignore people who try to ask too many questions. You can't blame him, because his head would explode if he tried to answer everything. But all right, you know what? Enough talking about Andrew Bartzis. I love the guy, love his work, love the information he provides, but I got to move on here. Hope you guys. Well, I know you didn't figure out what the difference between dimension and density is, but can't say I didn't try to give you info from different sources. But anyway, I want to move on here. The 4th to 6th layers, the paths and realms of spirit. Beyond the barrier, you begin to enter the paths and realms. Paths are exactly what they sound like, spaces that exist between realms. Realms are discrete areas that persist over time. Individuals who have attained a certain degree of mastery may be able to influence the paths and realms. That is, if they are willing to commit the energy it takes to do something. Manifestation, the bread and butter of the third layer, manifestation is the bread and butter of the third layer, is still very much possible here. It is, however, more costly in terms of personal energy. Out in the paths and the realms, you begin to discover entire worlds of existence that are not based on the physical and have never been. Entire species and races exist out here, including things that many Earth humans consider to be mythical and fictitious. The realms are infinite, and there are many, many different ways for consciousness to express itself. They have existed since consciousness first sparked. Key word there is infinite number of realms. Jesus never existed. Yeah, he did. In another realm, laws of probability say that if there's infinite realms, then every possible thing has to exist somewhere. So in some realm, there was something that was fictional. And I do remember in a radio interview that Tanaf did on the Talk with Vince show, or called something like that, some guy named Vince, where she did say that some fictional stories, like, among other things, Little Red Riding Hood, she did give that as example. She said that Little Red Riding Hood did actually happen, and I do believe she said that it happened in another realm. I could, well, they're infinite, so of course that's going to happen somewhere. But the secret to that is, I don't think she went into this, the guy who wrote Little Red Riding Hood, whatever his name was, how exactly did he obtain the information from that realm which gave him the idea to write the story Little Red Riding Hood, which he thought all along was just a fictional story he made up? Now that's a question that I think I should definitely address with a guest sometime in the future. But anyway, I want to move on here. Some Earth humans are able to project past the barrier and into the paths and realms. Others can be taken from the third level to the realms or beyond. Some Earth humans are even incarnated from denizens of the realms. The Silver Legion has a realm of its own here. We consider this our home base, as it were. We have modified our realm to suit our purposes, including extensive living quarters, recreational facilities, and training grounds. Beyond the 4th to 6th layers, this is next article, it says, beyond that, the Outlands. The paths and realms are infinite enough that it could almost make one say, what could possibly be beyond that? However, there are places that exist even beyond the 3rd layer of the realms. I am not sure what other people call it, but we in the Silver Legion have taken to calling it the Outlands. This is the area where the lines between the universe and the next begin to blur, where if you step too far, you might end up in a world you thought was fictional, or in an alien place where nothing works as you expect it to. There are pockets of existence here that persist. In fact, my own species of origin has its home here, where we came at the end of a long journey that started when our own physical 3D existence ended. The Outlands are not easy for people to go to unless you come from there, or are brought there by someone who lives there. The Silver Legion does not maintain a presence in the Outlands, though we do send talent scouts there. Well, that's the end of the stuff on the Silver Legion's description, Tanath's descriptions, that is, of the higher planes. And there is another article here talking about how people can. No, that's not the right page. There is a page here I want to get to, which talks about how we could potentially access these higher realms, paths, outlands, and dimensions, or whatever you want to call them, of existence. And this is in the frequently asked questions section. It says here, updated April 20th, 2014. I wonder, I haven't been on this page since then. I wonder what was added here. But anyway, first question, how do I astral project? This is probably our most common question. To tell the truth, I've always been rather poor. It's just that the word good appeared right below the word rather, so my eyes tricked me there. It says here, to tell the truth, and this is Tanath speaking, I've always been rather poor at teaching this particular technique, but there are a number of very, very good resources on the web, some translated into many languages. The works of Robert Monroe are particularly good, from what I have experienced and heard from others who are far better at it than I am. Doing a search for Robert Monroe and astral projection will usually turn up several helpful links. As with anything esoteric, everyone's experience will differ. Try to dismiss your expectations of the experiences and just accept what comes. Suppress your fear, because nothing will halt your progress faster. Also, what works for one person may not work for another. Feel free to experiment and try different things. There is no right or wrong way to do it. And I think I might as well get into here's another article. Maybe if I still have time, I'll get into this thing above that. But it says here, I can't astral project. Can I still visit or join the Silver Legion? This is key, because Tanath has stated that if you ask the Silver Legion to recruit you, so to speak, they will recruit you. And I myself, for a period of time, always asked the Silver Legion to recruit me before I went to sleep, although I was told for other people, why just the Silver Legion? Try other entities and groups to ask to recruit you when your body sleeps. So whenever before I go to bed, I always say, Silver Legion and other benevolent legions of light workers and light warriors of light and love, please recruit me, just to make it sure that it's not just the Silver Legion that I've dedicated all my energy to. My Facebook friend Lance White, who I'm sure some of you listening have heard of, fascinating individual, did that 20-part interview with Andrew Bartzis on the Creating 5D YouTube channel he did. He told me that you should never give your allegiance to any Silver Legion. And I also want to give a shout-out to Lance for when I posted my Joe Mara interview on Facebook groups. I called that video, Why We Must Utilize Spiritual Practices and Alternative Healing. And Lance told me there is no such thing as must. You are making a mistake saying that we must. So then I changed the word must to should. But this whole thing about astral projection, I can't astral project. Can I still visit or join the Silver Legion? Yes, I suggest astral projection to people because it permits the human consciousness to remember, direct, and perceive the experience. It is not the only way to reach us. If you go to bed intending to reach us, you will, which is why I did that for a little bit of time. Your non-physical self, of which your human self is only a fragment, will reach us and interact with us. The reason I don't suggest this to everyone is because the sleep time work is hard to remember when you wake up. Yeah, as I said that, you will have to sit down and focus on remembering, and the memories that come through will be dim and distant as thought from childhood, not clear like what they did the day before. This may be so fantastic that you have trouble believing that you actually experienced what you remember, and thus they are easy to dismiss as just your imagination. Since most of us aren't at the level where we have a high degree of personal confidence in your own memories and perceptions of the non-physical world, I suggest astral projection. A successful out-of-body experience will usually leave no doubt in the person's mind that they had the experiences that perceive themselves to have. The sleep method, note not just dreams, these aren't always dreams you remember, but vague memories of having done something, is not so obvious. It doesn't really talk about... well, actually, I think it does here. I skipped over this part here. But one thing I want to talk about here, I guess this might as well end the show on this good note, because this is some help on how to become more tuned with this matrix that I tried to describe at the universal and a multiversal level on today's show. This question here that Tanath writes, How do I figure out what I'm supposed to do? Many people have written to us with questions about their personal missions and how to gain guidance and clarity in understanding what they are here to do. The answer to that question is typically inside you. Someone else isn't going to be able to tell you what you are here to do because only you know that. However, knowing that you have a mission and truly consciously being aware of what your mission is are two different things. There's a technique that I use and that I have sent to some of the people who have written to me. Yes, I answer emails unless you give me a bad email. Well, actually, Tanath has apparently shut down her email address for some reason. She's also not appearing on shows. Said in one of her posts, I want to put my money where my mouth is, whatever that means. But Andrew Bartis was trying to communicate with her until he realized her email was out temporarily. I hope Tanath wants to come on radio again. I did try to get her on my show. It's a time zone issue, though, because she's a couple time zones to the west. And she said that she's not able to work on the show, do my show, because she has to work at those hours. And Tanath is, I gotta love the way she talks, because she always talks about how she is a human. Like, I'm just a human. Please understand. You gotta cut me slack because I am just a human. Don't assume that just because I keep in contact with a powerful legion of light workers and love and light warriors that I can do everything. I mean, she's very adamant about that. I mean, you gotta love her for talking like that. And she even said, please don't blame me for giving out information the way I do. As a human, I have a fear of what other people think about me. Well, Tanath, there is a group on Facebook that I've joined, which is called What Other People Think Is None of My Business. It's called What Other People Think About Me Is None of My Business. You really can't post anything on that site. It's the moderator for that page is kind of strict. But anyway, I recommend everybody join that group so you can overcome your fear of what other people think, because the fear of what other people think is the worst prison to be in. But anyway, enough talking about Tanath. I do love her. Her radio show interviews are pretty awesome. I hope that she does come on. I'd love to have her on someday to talk about the Silver Legion and other things, and talk about some of the stuff I discussed on this show in terms of what the nature of reality is like, because that description she put on the Higher Planes page is probably one of the best sources you can find in terms of what reality is like. We could go on and on in terms of every significant detail of the realms, outlands, and whatnot, but I got to keep it basic on this show. Moving on, the feedback I've gotten on this tells me that it's very helpful for a lot of people. Tanath writes, I would like to provide it to you. This technique will be familiar to some readers who have long familiarity with energy work. It did not originate with me. I don't think any one person can claim to own this technique, so I provide it to everyone to use as they see fit. First step, centering. First, center yourself. To do this, find a comfortable, quiet place where you will not be interrupted for a period of time. You'll want to sit or lie down. This will be difficult to do standing up, at least until you get more practice at it. Get comfortable. Focus on yourself, on your body, and on aligning with all the little stray bits of your energy and yourself that get scattered all around you as you go about your everyday business. I imagine myself as compromised to multiple silhouettes with a red dot in the center. Sometimes there'll be one or two flying all over the place, and I pull them back into myself and line up the dots until they click together. Another person I know envisions herself as tangled yarn, which she rewinds up into the neat ball at her core. However you do this is up to you, and whether or not you are centered depends on whether or not you feel centered. Centering is important because it is the foundation upon which you build all other energy work. If you are not centered, you are harder for outside forces to interfere with. This is because you have a distinct feeling of self, not self, and outsiders cannot impose something upon yourself and make you think it's part of you. This kind of trickery is often used by dark-oriented beings. Centering is thus essential for learning and actively using discernment. And the next thing she talks about is grounding. This is quite interesting that she writes this, because you often hear about people say, first, you want to make sure you are grounded. Tanath, on the other hand, is saying here, you want to make sure you are centered. Center yourself. That's the first thing you should do. Now, this is something I should definitely be bringing to some of our radio show hosts' attention in the future about why does everybody say you should first ground yourself when some other sources like Tanath here say to center yourself first. But it's a unique thing to consider. I hope you got something from that. But moving on, next thing you should do is ground yourself, Tanath writes. You can ground without centering. Well, yeah, as I said, but Tanath says here, but as I said, centering is vital to your strength and stability and energy work. So I guess that means you should center before grounding. But moving on, grounding builds on that. To ground, visualize your energy extending like a room from you into Mother Earth and linking with her. This is a two-way conduit. If you are here with more energy, than you can take, it will go through the grounding link and dissipate harmlessly in Mother Earth. If you are drained, you can call upon her strength. And if you call the light to you, you call it to Mother Earth and thus help with raising her consciousness too. You can ground from wherever you are. It doesn't matter if you're sitting on the grass or 3,000 feet up in a plane. As long as you are within the atmosphere, you are within reach of Mother Earth. Most of us like to be touching stone or ground when we do this, but it isn't necessary. Next thing, calling the light. Once you are centered and grounded, call upon the light. Envision a field of light flowing from within you, through the crown of your head, throughout your body, pulling between your hands, and surrounding you totally. Bask in the light if you like, and call it to you. Bringing the light like this is a powerful form of protection. Dark entities find it very difficult to be near you when you are calling in the light. This means that when you are making your requests, it will be received by the light rather than intercepted. While you are centered, grounded, and in the light, it is a good time to make any request or ask for any help that you need. Your intent and the strength of your desire is what matters here. Also, don't expect an answer right away, and try not to anticipate what the answer will look like. The universe often surprises us, and when we try to force it to act in the way we expect it, it usually refuses. What you can and should do is ask that the answer come to you in a form that is undeniable and understandable to you. It doesn't need to be something that would convince a jury in a court of law, only something meaningful to you. So make your request by sending it within yourself and let the energy go. Get up and go do something else and try not to dwell on whatever it is you've asked about or for. Let that energy go do its work. Don't expect a time frame and try to clear yourself of expectations, but do expect an answer. Lastly, Tanath writes, keep yourself safe. She puts the word safe in capital letters. That word's safe. You got to be careful with that word. Your government tells you we want to keep you safe, so give up your rights. It's a scam. But at the same time, there are situations in life where it's not a bad idea to want to be safe, like if an economic collapse happens and all the people from the cities are trying to get into the suburbs to loot everything. You may want to stay safe by barricading your door and putting bulletproof glass or something on your windows so nobody can break in. Now, that's a situation where you should maybe be concerned about being safe, but let's see what Tanath writes here. Additionally, if you have contact with spirit entities, it is entirely within your right to ask them, point blank, if they are of the light and are there to serve your best interests. Ask each 3 times. An entity that is will answer you unambiguously and without taking offense. Anything that gets evasive or gives you answers like, of course I am, don't ask me again, and doesn't give you a clear, unambiguous answer 3 times, be suspicious. Those that serve the light know what's at stake here, and usually understand how difficult it is for those of us incarnated in the 3D to operate and discern, and will not take offense to this. Those who are trying to deceive you will typically get falsely affronted or try to divert you. Well, folks, I do hope you learned something from Tanath's advice here. I mean, Tanath is just one individual, but this is kind of unique in that she does seem to have a pretty good understanding of what the true nature of the universe is based on what her contacts in the Silver Legion have told her, and consequently that enabled her to write this unique experience of how to go through life in this matrix that I described earlier in the show, discussing what the universe and the multiverse are like, courtesy of David Icke's book and Tanath's page here. I mean, if you want to center before grounding, or if you just want to ground without centering, hey, that's fine. I just pointed that out because it's kind of significant. But one thing I do want to get into here before I bid the show good day, navigating through this matrix. I did run into a few bump in the roads while navigating through this matrix recently, and I'd like to talk about this for a moment, not to share my life story or anything, but to understand just how much of a hassle this matrix can be, even when you're doing some good. Let me just get a quick drink of water here. Okay, here's the deal. As I said on my show with Joe Mara when I had him on my show, I have gotten a lot of flack from Patriot groups and spirituality groups on a couple of occasions because I try to combine the work of the Patriot movements, the conspiracy movements, and the spirituality and the metaphysics and the extraterrestrial movements. One of my missions in life, I feel this is a mission in life, is to bring everybody into a collective whole, to to make everybody feel like they are one. I think this is critical to make us realize we're all one consciousness. I mean, this is the exact opposite of all the Illuminati bloodlines trying to merge everything and create big mergers to try to consolidate everything into one world government. No. This is the exact opposite. This is like what the Founding Fathers did when they created the U.S. Constitution, the federal Constitution, to try to unify the states into a collective whole to make sure no one had their rights violated. So, too, am I trying to unify the conspiracy, the patriot, the spirituality, the UFO, the metaphysics, and all those communities of people who stand for freedom and stand for love and want to oppose tyranny and be free and expand consciousness. I try to merge them together by, among other things, posting conspiratorial stuff in spirituality groups on Facebook and posting spirituality stuff in patriot groups on Facebook. And very often the spirituality groups will criticize me and say, we don't follow conspiracy stuff. We already got past this years ago. Could you please not post this here? And I've had a similar problem with patriot movements. I try to and spirituality stuff. I try to put stuff about spirituality and also UFOs and aliens in those groups, and they tell me this is all too Greek to us. This is too complicated. We're not into this stuff like you are. And I mean, people that are in the patriot community have often criticized me of talking about extraterrestrials and saying nobody's going to take you seriously if you talk about that. Well, I made it clear I don't give a rat's ass about what other people think about me. I feel that it is better to just spew out information that exposes the true nature of reality for what it really is and not give a rat's ass about what others think about you. If people don't want to believe you, that's their problem. If forces within the New World Order, the tyrants in government, want to come after me and try to ridicule me and mock me and discredit me, karma is eventually going to come back to haunt them. And trying to discredit me because I give them out ammunition to attack me with, they will come back. They will try to use that discrediting ammunition that I've given them to discredit me. Karma will come back to haunt them, and people will eventually realize, why are these people trying to discredit someone who stands for good? And George Cavazos made that very clear when I interviewed him, when he said that he's going to continue to talk about his prediction that Earth would ascend into 5D Earth in the time period between the winter solstice 2012 and the March 2013 spring equinox. That was wrong, but he says, I'm going to keep talking about it so I can give those son of a bitch suckers in the Illuminati some ammunition to fight me with. And if they keep trying to fight me, it's going to hurt them in the long run because of karma and people realizing that they're discrediting someone who stands for good. I believe the same way. That's why I'm not scared to talk about things like time travel technology being used in 1971 to look into the future to see 9/11 happen, which gave the government 30 years to prepare for it. Talked about that with Andrew Bashago in my interview with him, and he said that the 9/11 True Movement won't listen to him in regards to this time travel stuff. They've even called him a kook, and it's obvious they don't want to talk about it because they feel we'll discredit them. They fear that they think you should care what other people think about you. Well, many people do, and in a march for corruption that I did last fall in Philadelphia, there are a few YouTube videos about this. Just type March for Corruption Philadelphia, and where we did marching throughout the city of Philadelphia exposing things. I suggested we shout 9/11 was an inside job and people want to take guns, and one protester who decided to be really stubborn insisted that we not talk about that, and I flat out told him, genius, the nanothermite, which can only be made in military labs, which was found in the World Trade Center dust, proves the U.S. government staged 9/11, so give me one good reason why I shouldn't say that 9/11 was an inside job as we march when the world has no choice but to believe that it was an inside job, because the nanothermite, which can only be made by U.S. military labs, and I believe that the only lab that people know of where it can be found, where it can be made, is in Colorado. I believe that was the state where it was mentioned from some source. That Colorado, there's a lab there that's the only place where nanothermite is known to be made. And the stubborn protester's response was, well, that may be so, but people won't believe it anyway, so it's not in our best interest to say it. Obviously, someone who suffers from a fear of what other people think, I mean, I think the Archons genetically engineered us to have a fear of what other people think. I mean, many years ago, not just the Anunnaki from Nibiru, but also the reptilian aliens, they did interbreed with the Anunnaki from Nibiru, and there's a lot of interbreeding because the Anunnaki is a hodgepodge of sorts that are the son of a universal geneticist known as Anu, and the Nibiru Anunnaki are just one faction. The reptilians interbred with the Anunnaki, and during the time of Sumer, and Zechariah Sitchin never said anything about the reptilian aliens in his books, but David Icke picked up there, and they genetically engineered humans. They didn't create humans. They tampered with what was already here to create Homo sapien as a slave species. And I'm sure that as part of the genetic tampering, they try to make sure that we have a fear of what other people think so that they can keep us in line. And even though I have always said I don't care what other people think about me, I must admit that I have on a couple of occasions in everyday life had a moment where someone might, some person who really suffers from that fear would say, oh, I'm not going to do this because other people will fear me. I cannot deny that there have been a couple times where like I felt like maybe a chill down my body or something like that in a situation where I do, for like a brief second, worry about what other people think about me. But for me, it's relatively easy to get over that because I can instantly say, what am I concerned about? I don't give a rat's ass what other people think about me. And then it's relatively easy for me to just go along and do the thing I want to do, be it talk about reptilian aliens or time travel being used to find out about 9/11 and whatnot. So I can't deny that even I suffer from that fear because it was implanted into my DNA like all humans, but it's relatively easy for me to get over like right off the bat just by saying, wait a minute, I don't care what other people think about me. It's the worst prison ever. I don't want to be in this. Unfortunately, my fellow humans can't seem to do that to a great extent, and people need to overcome their fear. And, well, like I just suggested to Nastu, there's a group on Facebook called What Other People Think About Me Is None of My Business. I guess for starters, you could join that group because maybe joining that group can help you overcome that fear. All right, I'm just screwing around. Joining a Facebook group probably won't really do much. But anyway, the point is people in the truth and the patriot movement just really can't get along because they either don't get what other people in truth movements are trying to talk about, or they think it will discredit them, or it sounds Greek to them. And I recently had this problem where, as I said on Andrew, when I had Andrew Bashag on my show, I got kicked out of the most popular 9/11 Truth Facebook page simply because I talked about some really far things about 9/11, like the time travel thing and the timeline incursion that 9/11 was, where many timelines came together in a perpetual war, not perpetual, excuse me, but in an all-out war, the good timelines and the bad timelines, and that stuff, and also some other really far-out things about 9/11, like HARP and nuclear bombs were used and in the buildings to take them down, and the planes were holograms. Many 9/11 truthers don't want to talk about that because they feel we'll discredit them. I mean, making a post about that, the next day I tried to sign back on that 9/11 Facebook page, and I realized I was banned from it because as soon as I clicked on it, it just redirected me right to the homepage on Facebook. So I figured out someone banned me. And boy, if anyone in the 9/11 Truth Movement is listening to this show, I must say I do feel a sense of being double-crossed and betrayed that you would actually do that to me. That was kind of hard to swallow, that you would do that simply because you don't want to talk about the stuff that I have the guts to talk about. But one final thing I'm going to talk about before I end the show, I got a call from a friend in my Patriot group. I'm not going to name any names here, but I got a call from one of the people in a Patriot group that I'm a part of, and he told me that some of the other people in the group have been complaining about how some of the things I post on the Facebook group's website are not correlated with what they stand for. Like I've tried to post some of my radio shows and the spirituality specific shows where we talk about that, because I said I really want to try to combine the work of the spirituality and the Patriot communities to create a double whammy, a lethal combination to help defeat the New World Order. But trying to do that hasn't really worked out too well, as I've already elaborated on. And this was one of those examples. And not only that, one of the people in the group came late to the last Patriot meeting that we were doing over our computers last week. She said the reason she was late was because she was trying to rat out people who were doing a heroin sale outside her property on the sidewalk. And as soon as she said that, I told her, whoa, you're ratting people out when they're not even committing a crime, because as someone who does study law in his free time and also studies the work of Eddie Craig very closely, I recommend I plug this video a lot on my show. I'm going to plug it again. There's a video on YouTube called Secrets Police Don't Want You to Know. It's on the Alex Jones channel. Check it out. It's 2.5 hours long. It's totally worth your time. Spread it like wildfire. If you follow the advice in that video, you will keep billions of dollars in stolen revenue out of the hands of the corrupt cops, tyrants, politicians, prosecution attorneys, and car insurance salesmen. It proves that only commercial drivers require licenses, registration, insurance, and license plates on their cars. And transportation laws only apply to commercial drivers. They don't apply to people who are using the roads for non-commercial purposes. Now, don't get me wrong. You should use your car in a safe manner because you can't be charged with negligence, reckless endangerment, and property damage, but not transportation laws. And this video, it shows what you should say when you get confronted by a police officer and how to fight the traffic tickets in court. And at the beginning, he proves what laws the government has and doesn't have authority to pass, and the government does not have authority to charge you with a crime unless you cause harm or intend to cause harm to another person or property through either negligence or deliberate intent. So simple possession of heroin is not a crime. It's only when you use the excuse of being under the influence of heroin or some drug that the government has authority to charge you with a crime. And Eddie Craig did make that pretty clear to me when I asked him that question when I called into one of his radio shows. And that's why I had to criticize this person who was coming into the group late for ratting out the heroin dealers. I was saying, hey, just because the government labels heroin as illegal doesn't mean they have the authority to regulate it as illegal. And she was obviously not very comfortable with that because she thought she was doing a good thing for the children and all that stuff. And I said, hey, I still felt an obligation to stand up for what the law should be, so that's why I had to criticize you. Unfortunately, it got into a little confrontation there, as one of the group moderators told me when he contacted me, and there was also that Patriot Group meeting where I tried to ask people, what are your rights? And then I said, if you don't know the answer to this question, you don't deserve to be a patriot. And the guy who called me in my Patriot Group told me that some people took offense to that. What's the matter? People can't stand a guy who's just trying to show an attitude in order to get a message across. Look, you say what you want about my attitude. I had every good intention by saying what I said about how you don't deserve to be a patriot if you don't know the answer to the question, what are your rights? And why do people take offense to that? I don't get it. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't have taken offense to it, but does that mean that I should care about other people who take offense to it? Well, yeah, I should care, but at the same time, how can I not help but think, why does it bother you? Why does it bother you that I would say something like that when I've made it clear that I care for everyone, I love everyone, and whenever I show that I'm having an attitude problem of some sort, I'm just trying to get my message across? Well, my my Patriot Group friend who contacted me did seem pretty understanding about what I was trying to say in regards to that's just my attitude getting the better of me. That's just me doing what I want to do. But at the same time, some people just don't get it. So even if I know what I'm talking about, and even if I am right about what should have been done, I got to be careful with what I say. And, well, I know I have to be careful with what I say from now on. But when I'm on my show here, it's going to be a completely different story in many ways in regards to what I talk about. But that's the Matrix for you. Wanted to talk about the Matrix today, and I did, and talk about how to navigate through it, and sungazing for health purposes and consciousness expanding purposes is a great way to navigate through it, and learning what it's like, of course, and with the Big Bang being bullocks and all that stuff, as David Icke says, and in his book, and the nature of reality from a higher perspective and how to astral project, or at least try to astral project. I mean, everybody's got their own way of navigating through the Matrix. I hope my description of this universal and multiversal matrix and the things we can do to navigate through it on the show today, and some of my life story in regards to some personal recent experiences I had for trying to do what I feel like doing in life, how it's been a hassle from the people who are acquainted with me because they don't seem to understand what I'm trying to do, and my intentions are not what they seem to be. And what's next? Someone's going to sue me for sexual harassment just because I say I love you because we're infinite consciousness? I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm going a little crazy there, but who knows? We live in a crazy matrix. Go with the flow. Hopefully it will take a turn for the worse. But like I said, if you live life to the fullest, intent will come back to haunt you. You give what you get. You're trying to deal with a matrix, so bad things might happen to you in return. But at the same time, if you show love, good things will also come to you. And I do hope I got that message across pretty well in this show. So I guess I might as well make this show a wrap. Next week, I am scheduled to have Elizabeth Mulligan on. Not a household name by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly a very knowledgeable woman. She is the host of the Diamonds Forever show, which I have actually been a guest on a couple times. And she and I jokingly said a couple times on that show, well, not jokingly, we were being serious because we do believe this, the best guest that a radio show host can have on their show could very well be another radio show host, because radio show hosts, and having all their guests on their show, they could be experts on pretty much anything, any more so than, or even better than any given guests they had on their show, simply because they've had so much experience getting information being on radio shows. I realized that, and that's why I decided to let Elizabeth Mulligan be a guest on my show. And I do encourage you to listen to her show. She does have a 30-minute news show as well as a regular show. I think the 30-minute news show airs on Thursdays. Not sure of the time, but the 2-hour to 3-hour information-wide shows that I participated in on Saturdays is also available. And I also recommend you listen to it. It's called Diamonds Forever. Elizabeth Mulligan is the host. She'll be on the show next Wednesday. So I hope you all tune in for that. So without further ado, namaste. Enjoy your experience throughout this matrix that I exposed today. Namaste.